Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Pod Talk. I'm here in Dallas for the first time for a conference, which is crazy, at the American Sports Medicine Institute. And we're talking about baseball pitchers, most notably UCL tears and Tommy John surgery. Now, this video is not going to be about UCLs or Tommy Johns. We will talk about it at some point in time, at a later video. What I really wanted to talk about was so many of the similarities of the epidemic of UCL tears and Tommy John surgeries in baseball are happening in soccer, female soccer, and ACL tears. Now, I wanted to talk about some of the variables that play into these factors, because I think if we have this discussion now and we talk about these variables, then you can help prevent a lot of the issues. You can help prevent a UCL injury, you can help prevent an ACL injury, and if you've ever talked to any player or athlete that's had an ACL tear, they would tell you that they wish that they had known about some of the preventable things that you could be doing to help decrease some of the incidence of rates of ACL tears. So, without further ado, let's begin. The first thing that you could do is rest, okay? A lot of you girls and a lot of you parents, you know what happens with your academy girls, especially the academy girls. The academy girls are playing academy, they're playing high school, they're playing indoor league. They have all of these like crazy overlapping leagues that they play in, and it's soccer 365 days of the year. Like, they just don't stop. On top of that, you're having tournaments on the weekends, you have showcases in like February and March and April. It's way too much. A lot of these issues are coming because of overuse, okay? And this is something that I preach in my performance class, and I preach this to my parents, which is, look, when you come to my performance class, I'm not teaching them to be a better soccer player. That is like the fourth or fifth thing that I'm trying to do. The first thing that I'm trying to do is teach them how to be a better athlete. Being a better athlete means that you're doing different movements at different times of the year. But when you're doing soccer all year round, and on top of that, let's just sprinkle in those tournaments and let's sprinkle in those showcases, you're putting a lot of stress into the knees, especially when you're not conditioning it, right? So, number one thing is, it's an overuse injury. ACLs are an overuse injuries. The second thing that I'd like you to know is, oftentimes when I get my girls who have ACLs and we're having to rehab it later, when I do kind of our history, like 98% of the time I ask them, did you have knee pain prior to your ACL tear? And most of the time they will say yes. They'll think about it and they'll be like, no, not really. And then I dig a little bit more and they're like, oh yeah, there was that time where my knee hurt for like a month straight and then it just kind of went away. Well, when your knee hurts, or your hip hurts, or your ankle hurts, you're moving in a different way. And what's probably happening is that you hurt your knee, your body is an amazing adapter, it adapts to that way. It's not necessarily the most efficient way of moving, it's definitely not the safest way of moving, and over time what ends up happening is you're just weakening the knee. The body is going to tell you when it hurts. Okay? When your body tells you it's hurting, there's something going on, there's something wrong. You need to have a therapist or somebody well qualified to evaluate that issue. That issue just doesn't magically go away. Look, if you had a Maserati or Lamborghini or BMW, you wouldn't think twice if that red engine light turned on. Well, when your athlete is telling you something hurts on their body, that's that red light. What are you going to do? Are you going to put black tape over it and ignore that red engine light sign? Or are you going to take it to your mechanic? You're going to take it to your mechanic. This is no different with your athletes. If your athlete is complaining, coaches, parents, if your athlete is complaining of pain, there is something going on. Let a therapist look at it. Okay. Number 3, conditioning. Look, you athletes are amazing soccer players. And at a certain point, at like 16, 17, you've become pretty elite. Your child has become fairly elite. They're very skilled players. Just because they're great soccer players does not mean that they're great athletes. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're conditioned very well. They're conditioned very well to be soccer players, but they're not conditioned very well to be athletes. Now, you can't expect your soccer player to not go through injuries when you don't train to prevent a lot of these issues. Conditioning is a huge issue, right? What ends up happening is most of the time an ACL tear happens, 75% of the time or 70% of the time it's non-contact, and it's most likely because they're fatigued. And if they're fatigued, what that happens is that they have bad mechanics and bad alignment, and they don't know these things because they've never been conditioned to know these things. So the third thing is conditioning. There's just not enough conditioning. The last thing that I'm going to say might piss off some of you. I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize in advance. But the last factor or variable is the parents or the coach. I'm sorry to say this, but it's totally true. It's this like culture or mentality of winning at all costs. And the girls that are really, really, really good are the ones that are generally on the field all of the time. And then what ends up happening is they get fatigued and they get sloppy on their mechanics, and then boom, that ACL tears. And oftentimes, I find it that, soccer players or the athletes are afraid to tell their coaches, they're afraid to tell their parents, they don't want to communicate that to them, or their coaches or parents ignore it and just say like rub dirt on it and just continue to play, or like a situation where there's like it's a tie game, we need to get a goal, let's continue to push, I'm just going to leave you out there. And I get it, the temptation is strong. I understand competitiveness. I understand that you want to win. But at what cost? And the cost is usually a terrible ACL tear or a meniscal tear or whatever it may be in the knee. So those are the 4 factors. I know that some of you don't want to hear that, but it's the honest truth. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Find me on social media. You can email me. You can text me. And move free, humans.